Hello everyone. I have been sent a set of peacock crafting items from Card Making Magic by Craftstash. Now these particular sets of products I probably wouldn't have chosen for my style of card making. But the folk at Craftstash asked me if I would have a look at these, make some things to see if I could use them in a clean and simple style. So just because something is a certain size doesn't mean you have to use the whole thing. So here we have a full size page, a card front die and a sentiment with its shadow backing. These two, you could put them on cards that open like a gate. A set of papers, there's some of each of these papers. An embossing folder. Another embossing folder. More dies. This again would go around. This is a 5x7 size card. Life is full of beauty. Another one. And then a whole bunch of sentiments and a feather die. So I thought I'd just start having a play, really. So I'll show you some of the things that I've done, and then we'll just kind of carry on and see what I can do at the moment. So I'll just put these on one side for a minute and pick up some of the things I've made. Okay, here's the first card. It's very basic, very simple. For this, I used what I thought was a peacock sympathetic colour in this sort of teal, deep teal, because to me, peacocks are sort of a cross of greeny bluey, and this is kind of greeny bluey. So for that, I used this sentiment, You Are In My Thoughts. They're quite large sentiments. And I used part of this die. I cut it out from vellum and then I sprayed it with a little spray and sparkle. Both the die cut itself there and the sentiment, and it's just got a few pearls added where the eyes of the tail feathers would be. So that was the first one. The next one I did was this one. Similar design, a square on a square, but for this one I thought I wanted a really sharp impression on there. So rather than use this embossing folder, which I could have done, the effect with this would have been much sort of softer. But what I decided to do was to use the die from this set. So I cut out a white feather, stuck it onto a piece of card, and then trimmed it down, mounted it with some glitter card, and did the sentiment, So Proud of You, this one here, without its shadow, and stuck it on the top. And I did cut just those couple of bits out of the silver glitter just to put in that place there. So both fairly clean and simple, but using huge dies. Normally the dies I use are absolutely minuscule. So other things that I did, I've got a few things here. I thought I would try making a stencil. There aren't any stencils in this pack, but I did make this one. And for that, I used that very first one I showed you, this background die. It's quite large, as you can see. There it is. So I looked for some mylar to make a stencil, couldn't find it. So what I did was to get a laminating pocket, pop it through my laminator, and then cut it in half and use that to make my stencil. And that's how I did this one. What I did for this was to put through, first of all, some colour. I think this was pistachio colour. What's it called? Oh no, salvage patina, I think now, or patina, however you care to call it. And then speckled eggs. Put the colour through, and then I put some 3D. Let me find it. This stuff. 3D adhesive, just put that through over the top and the colour shines up through it because it's a sort of, this one is a translucent. So that one can then be used as a background. I can cut it down, whatever, use it as in a background for one of my cards. Okay, another thing I did was this. And for this one, I used, let's get this away, otherwise we're going to get in a bit of a pickle. For this one, I used the embossing folder, this one. But in order to get this pattern like this, I used the debossed side. What I did was inked the back, the inside of the back of the embossing folder with Versamark, put my card inside, ran it through my folder, and then I sprinkled it with some embossing powders and heat set it. And this is the effect I got. Well, I've just cleared a space and I've got my card base ready, and I'm going to make a card from this little piece. I have made a video of this process, which I'll put a link to in the description below this video. So if you want to know the process of doing this embossed colour on the deboss side, then it'll be there for you to see. So I'm just going to cut 3 little squares from this panel. The fact that it has been embossed and I'm now die cutting, which often just flattens something, which it won't do what it does, but it doesn't much matter because I have the pattern that I need already there. So what I intend to do is to put 3 little squares onto this little panel and then just put a sentiment at the bottom, and we'll see what we can find for that in a moment or two. So anyway, I'll do really. I want to try and make sure I've got room for the I'll find it some. What I intend to do is use a bit of a sentiment. I thought this one, I just want the word friend. So let's get it out, and I need to see where to position my squares to make sure I've left enough space on that piece of card there for the word friend. That's it there. So let's just pop this away again a minute. Out of the way. So I've got to get the word friend somewhere in a bit of colour. Perhaps I'll do the friend along the end there like that. Then I could get I don't know if you can see what I'm doing here. I want to get the word friend there. So I've got one cut out, and I could cut another one from there and another one, say, from there or here. Oh, that's quite a nice bit. Would I have room for that one there? Let's do that one next. I've got to be a little bit careful just to make sure that I have enough room for all the pieces. So I need 3 squares and the word friend out of this particular little panel. It was just done with a scrap of card that was left over. So let's just see. There's a second one. And let's get the word friend out first, and then we'll make sure that we've got room for the other square. Okay. Oh, I think I'm going to do this. Should be okay. Right. Let's just carefully lift this off. With the magic mat, the die cuts often tend to stick into it. So there's friend. You may have to put that onto something just to emphasise it just a little bit. We'll see. And the last little bit. I think that will do. Okay. Then we'll see about assembling the card. Right. Okay. Where do we want to put these? terribly clean and simple, isn't it? Let's just put these together. And then this is my Barely art glue sent by a friend from the States, which was so kind. Now, when I'm putting 3 things onto a card, I will always do the 2 ends first. Which way do I want it? Probably like that. The 2 ends first, and then I can position the middle one absolutely in the middle between the other 2. Just helps with a little bit with positioning. I think I'll have it that way. And here I'm trying to put the same space all the way around it. Okay, and then we'll put the other one in the centre. There we go. I think I'll use a pair of tweezers to position this. Which way do I want it? That looks quite nice like that, doesn't it? Okay, there we go. Now, to emphasise that a little bit, I think I'll probably just raise that onto a little bit of foam tape. Let's do it. Okay. There's the first bit. And the second bit. Now, I think this friend just needs a little bit of, I don't know, definition somehow. There's rather a lot of white. Just putting a touch of glue stick on there so that it does help with positioning. The foam tape will grab immediately if I'm not careful. And if it's not in quite the right position, then I can't move it very well. So let's have that about there. Okay, that's nice. Now, this one, I feel, needs a little definition. What am I going to do with that? I think I might just add a little bit of ink. Let's have Salty Ocean, I think. Looks similar sort of colour, doesn't it, to one of the things that I used. And what's the best thing just to... I'm not quite sure what the best way to just add this colour, whether to use a brush or a bit of sponge. I'll use a tiny bit of sponge, I think. Just cut a piece off here. This is just dish sponge. I find it really useful for little bits and bobs like this. Let's just see. That's probably enough. Yes, I think that's going to be enough. Good-o. Right, now turn that over. I put a bit of glue on the back of this, hold it down with tweezers. I could have used glue dots or whatever for this, but just wondering whether this should go on its... No, I'm not going to put it on its background. I'd have to cut the whole thing out. It's interesting how it's just come off, isn't it? I thought I was going to have to cut that away from the rest of the sentiment, but I think where I positioned it on that piece of card did it for me. Right, let's move that out of the way. There we are. That's so pretty, isn't it? As I say, I will add the link to the technique for doing the reverse embossing, whatever you call it. There we go. Yeah, that's quite nice, isn't it? Now, just a quick, because I've put one layer of foam tape on there, I'm not going to put a second, otherwise it'll be getting too fat to go through the mail, so we'll just put the one on. This one can be stuck directly, but it does make a subtle frame nevertheless. Even if it's not raised from the background, it does just give it a subtle little frame. Okay. There we go. Okay, there's another one. So that's number 3. I just got my one of my press cut dies, a rectangle and an oval, cut out a front panel and then popped that through this embossing folder just to make a sort of a fancy surround for this sentiment. Today is all about you. Not sure which one this one comes from. Let's see if I can find it. It's from the large die. Today is all about you. So I thought I'd pop that into the middle. It's kind of a fancy frame for it, really. So I'm going to raise this, and I thought, shall I put a plain colour behind or what? And I looked through my drawer and I found this piece of card, which has just got a bit of smooshing on. It's just a little bit of, I think it's Luscious powders and a little bit of very diluted of my homemade embossing paste. Just like that, pick it up and that's what you get. So I thought that would look quite nice. It's kind of, to me, peacocky shades and over the top like that. So let's just pop it together and then we'll be kind of done for today. Right, first of all, I'm going to put some foam tape around the back of this. And for this one, I'm going to use my narrow foam tape. I often do this to add relief to cards. People say, and a lot of people do, curve their foam tape around shapes like this, but I don't care for doing it. I'm afraid I get in a bit of a pickle. So I think whatever works for you is the right thing to do, and this works for me, so I'm happy to do it in little strips. This narrow stuff, as I say, would curve more, fairly easily, but I don't care for doing it. So I'm just going to pop this around the outside, and then we'll put the piece of smooshed card behind it. There we go. Which way we want it? Anyway, we'll do. Okay. That is behind now, and so there's a little bit of definition around the actual oval itself. Now I'm going to stick this onto there, and this is stacked. I have 2 layers there, just for a bit of additional definition. Okay, put it on. Often using a fat one like this is quite useful. Sometimes what you're sticking it to depends on what kind of glue you need. A watery glue like this one doesn't always stick so well to shiny surfaces, so often you'd need a PVA type glue, but we'll see. That seems fine. Okay. Now we'll take off the rest of these. Today is all about you. So I hope you found a few things that you found interesting, and take a look, at Craft Stash, and you can see the Peacock range from Card Making Magic by Christina Griffiths. Have a bit of fun. You don't have to use things in the way that they were probably designed to be used. You can do your own thing, make it your own. So, as ever, thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you next time.